Created by a Tudor and destroyed by the Parliamentarians under Oliver Cromwell's rule, the spectacular lost crown of Henry VIII is one of the more famous royal jewels we no longer have. But what exactly did it look like? What did Henry wear it for? And what was its precise fate? This is History Calling, where I bring you new videos every week on all aspects of the past, and today we're looking at the Tudor state crown. Make sure you stay till the end, and I'll also tell you why some people think part of this item was rediscovered in 2017 and whether I think this theory is true. According to Anna Key in her official illustrated history of the crown jewels, the Tudor state crown was most likely created by either Henry VII or Henry VIII, though you'll often see it referred to as Henry VIII's crown. This is perhaps because the earliest clear mention we have of it comes 12 years into his reign, on the 24th of February 1521, in a detailed inventory entry which describes this show-stopping item from the Tudor crown jewels collection. This lengthy description, which I'm going to summarise for you here, says that the king's crown was made of gold, and that the border of it, which I take to mean the main band that would go around the head, was garnished with 6 balas rubies, which are what we would now call spinels, 5 sapphires, 5 pointed diamonds, 20 rubies, 19 pearls, and 4 collets, which were the rims of gold into which the jewels were set. There were then 5 crosses alternating with 5 fleurs-de-lis rising up from this band. Each of the fleurs-de-lis had a little medallion attached to it, on its top leaf, for lack of a better term. 3 of these showed Christ, another showed Mary and the baby Jesus, and the last showed St. George, patron saint of England and the guy who supposedly fought a dragon. The crosses and fleurs-de-lis were also heavily decorated with precious stones, including large sapphires, emeralds, many more balas rubies, and scores of pearls. The 1521 description doesn't make a very clear reference to the arches on top of the crown. However, it does talk at the end about there being, on the diadem above, 12 pointed diamonds, some better than the other 3 triangle diamonds, 1 table diamond, and 28 pearls. I'm taking this diadem above as a reference to the 4 golden, gem-encrusted and closed arches we can see in this picture of Charles I with the crown, though you can let me know below if you disagree. We can also see in this image that it was topped by a golden mond to represent the world and a golden cross. There was a bonnet underneath the arches, which was most likely made of velvet and which looks to be a deep red colour in this image. That said, we do also have this version of Charles's portrait held by the National Portrait Gallery in London, in which the bonnet is blue, as is the king's outfit. Whether this bonnet, mond and cross were there in the early 1520s, I don't know, as they aren't mentioned in the inventory, but we do know that the crown was altered long before the Stuarts inherited it. After Henry's break from the church in Rome, Historic Royal Palaces tells us that it was felt that having 3 Christ figures on the crown was no longer appropriate, and at some point they were replaced with 3 English kings who were renowned as saints in the 16th century. These were Edward the Confessor, St. Edmund, and Henry VI, the latter of whom was never officially made a saint, but was often treated as such given his known piety and very suspicious death. See my video on his fate, linked on screen and below for you, for more information about that. It would be nice to know what the primary source was that supplied this information. I'm guessing it's something like Treasury records that mention the price of the alterations to the crown, but I'm prepared to trust that HRP of all places didn't just make this up. Before I continue, if you're enjoying this content, please give this video a thumbs up, which really helps to ensure it gets promoted to other people who are interested in the same topic, and subscribe to the channel with the notification bell switched on so that YouTube lets you know every time I upload. If you'd like more from History Calling, you can also follow me on social media and/or consider joining my Patreon site by checking out the links for these things in the description box below. What was this crown used for, though, besides looking great in royal portraits? Historic Royal Palace's website has some answers to this question too. It tells us that Henry wore the crown at Hampton Court, especially on the 6th of January, which is the feast of the Epiphany, and that it was used at the coronations of his 3 surviving children, Edward VI, Mary I, and Elizabeth I, and the first 2 Stuart monarchs, James I and his son, the aforementioned Charles I. That doesn't mean that it always appears in images of these events, however. Here we see a later portrait of Elizabeth's coronation, for instance, but it is clear that the crown on her head is not the Tudor state crown, probably because, just like today, coronations could involve the use of more than one crown. Even when the actual item was not in use, though, its image could appear elsewhere, and it has seemingly appeared in numerous monarchs' coats of arms and royal monograms. I say seemingly because images of these arms are sometimes so small and simplified that it can be difficult to be sure which crown we're looking at, but I do think we're seeing the Tudor crown in this picture. Furthermore, we know that an approximation of it is definitely what we're seeing in the monograms of monarchs including George V and Charles III, and you can see George V's here on a postbox in Windsor. Others, including Elizabeth II, have used St Edward's crown, which I already have a video on and which I'll leave linked for you. As objects embossed with such monograms and ciphers are often not regularly replaced, we can therefore see images of the Tudor state crown on publicly used items like this postbox and also payphones all over the United Kingdom and Commonwealth. What happened to the original, though? The short answer is that Oliver Cromwell happened to it, or rather the Parliamentarians who were under his ultimate control did, for I'm not saying that he personally destroyed the crown. After the abolition of the monarchy and the execution of Charles I in 1649, the former king's possessions were taken and inventoried before being destroyed or sold to raise money for the new government. In those inventories, we find a record of the Tudor state crown and its final fate. In that document, it is listed as the King's Crown and valued at £1,110. For context, this would have the purchasing power of about £114,904 nowadays. Its description and the description of its destruction reads as follows. The imperial crown of massy gold weighing 7 pounds 6 ounces, enriched with 19 sapphires, 37 rubies balas, 21 small rubies, 2 emeralds, which I think is a contraction of the word emerald, 28 diamonds, 168 pearls. The gold, 6 ounces being abated for the stones, valued at £280. The sapphires at £198, the balas rubies at £149, the small rubies at £16, the emeralds at £5, the diamonds at £288, the pearl at £174. The inventory goes on to tell us who bought what from the crown, though I'm afraid I don't know who the people mentioned in this paragraph were. It reads, the contractors sold to Crook on the 3rd of January 1649/50, this means the 3rd of January 1650 in our modern calendar, 232 pearls from it for £320. The 19 sapphires were sold to Humphreys 30th of April 1652 for £198. Lavender appears to have been unable to fulfil an earlier contract to buy them. The gold was delivered to the mint to be coined. This means the royal, or rather the formerly royal at this point, mint in the Tower of London. The copies give valuation for the individual sapphires. I don't know what this little sentence refers to, unfortunately. 56 rubies were sold to Lee 7th of January 1649/50 for £200, and 2 more sold to Dyrek. 2 emeralds were sold to Murray, AO, this is an abbreviation meaning and others, 23rd of October 1651 for £5. 28 diamonds were sold to Mallory 3rd of January 1649/50 for £191, 10 shillings, 6 pence. A little later in the inventory, we have the following sentence. The aforementioned crowns, since the inventory was taken, are, according to order of Parliament, totally broken and defaced. I think when you read these entries, you can understand how complete the destruction and dispersal of the crown and its jewels was. It's no wonder that it was impossible to reconstruct it later on. It's also absolutely gut-wrenching to read documents like this and think of the history that was being completely trashed to make a quick buck in interregnum England and destroy the symbols of monarchy. Cromwell and his supporters would have considered themselves patriots, doing the best thing they could for their country, Yet I find it impossible to buy into this when I look at their actions regarding the jewels. No one doing their best for their country deliberately destroys its cultural history like this. It's the same behaviour we see nowadays from totalitarian regimes, and at any other point in early modern English history, it would have warranted a death sentence for treason. So the Tudor state crown is gone, and we can't ever get it back. But in 2021, a story emerged in the press claiming that one tiny part of it had been found. I'll leave a link to an article about this in the description box, but in short, a metal detecting enthusiast found a 2.5-inch tall gold and enamel statue of Henry VI in a field in 2017, and by 2021 he was questioning whether it was one of the little saintly figures from the Tudor crown which I described to you earlier. The theory goes that because the figure was found near the site of the 1645 Battle of Naseby, which the Royalists lost, Charles may have dropped this piece off one of his crowns as he was fleeing the battlefield. If true, this would of course be brilliant and would make the figurine much more expensive too, but for now at least I would advise caution. Unless evidence can be produced showing that the king had the Tudor crown with him at the time of the battle, I find this theory to be quite the stretch, and even if he did, it would still be hard, verging on impossible, to prove that the figure came from it. It's a good story though, and helps to shine a light on this lost Tudor treasure. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. As always, a big thank you to my patrons and to those of you who donate to the channel using the thanks button beneath videos for your very generous support, which helps me to keep creating for you. Let me know in the comments below how likely you think it is that the rediscovered figure found in a field actually comes from the Tudor crown, and if you'd like to learn more about the English or Scottish crown jewels, and the Scottish ones have had a really adventurous existence and actually managed to survive Cromwell, then try one of these videos next. Whatever you choose, please enjoy, and until next time, keep learning.